and gentlemen, and to all students. And a very good afternoon for everyone and each of you. And we are pleased to be welcomed again by Professor Eduardo de la Pena from Ghent University, Belgium, in today's scientific writing workshop. And first of all, allow me to extend our warmest greetings again to the head of the Department of Plant Pests and Diseases, Dr. Lukman Kurota Aini, also to all colleagues who join us in today's today's scientific workshop, and also to all professors, doctors, and colleagues who participate on today's scientific writing workshop in Zoom. On scientific writing workshop is a part of Pena Cafe program held by the Department of Plant Pests and Disease Department. And in brief, the goals of this scientific writing workshop or Pena Cafe is to increase the quality and the quantity of scientific articles of the department's faculties. As we all know, the number of international index article is one of the primary indicators used to determine the university ranks. And mostly only Q1 and Q2 journals are considered and the rest are not evaluated. And hopefully on this special day, we are grateful that Professor Eduardo are willing to share his experience regarding the scientific article publication, and he will give us a presentation about strategies for research, project development, and paper writing. And to start the workshop, let's move on to the opening speech segment that is going to be delivered by the head of the Department of Plant Pests and Diseases. And I would like to invite Dr. Lukman Kurota Aini for the opening speech. And maybe you can elaborate the aim of Pena Cafe in more detail.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ito. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati semua, and to Professor Eduardo de la Peña. Again, I would like to thank to you that you have time to share and give workshop here. Actually, this program, we call it Pena Cafe. Actually, this from our department that has a purpose to increase the publication of our staff. So not only paper, but also books and also the patent, how to write. But one of activity is this workshop. That's why when you came here and we try to arrange this this event in order to increase the ability of our staff and also the student of master's degree in our faculty also, particularly for in the Department of Plant Pests and Disease, is plant pathology and also entomology. So I hope this workshop will be benefit to all of us and increase our ability to write paper and to get the higher rank of publication. And maybe this is the first workshop, and then next day you will give again. So that's all. Thank you very much for your time, and also thank you.
Lukman Kurota Aini. And ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the core agenda of today's scientific workshop. And I would like to invite Professor Eduardo to start your presentation, or maybe directly you can initiate the discussion. It is better if each of us could tell Professor Eduardo about our background and our research interests, and maybe our knowledge and understanding about scientific writing and publication.
Thank you, Ito, for the presentation, and thank you to the head of the department for his introductory words. Again, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here today. and yeah, to share with you some ideas and exchange yeah, some knowledge. I want to emphasize that for me, it's also an important learning experience. So I'm also learning a lot. So thanks. And thanks once again for your hospitality. So I just want to start with a very brief introduction. As you know, I come from Ghent University in Belgium, which is a well-reputed university in not only in Belgium, but in Europe. And indeed, an important aspect in Ghent University, as in academia in general, is publishing. You know? And since 2017, actually, I've been teaching students, master students and PhD students. I've been giving a course on project management and scientific writing. So for this workshop today and especially tomorrow, I'm taking part of the material that I'm actually lecturing at Ghent University. So and I've been doing that since 2017, I think. So with this, I think I'm sharing my screen. So for me, it's important that in this workshop, we discuss and we take a look to how the scientific system works, because publishing papers actually is the end result of a process of a. So I think it's important that we understand how the scientific system works from different perspectives, and in this case, from a very pragmatic point of view. So, because at the end, I think you are here because you want to publish, but I think that it's important to understand everything that happens before the moment that you open your computer and then you think, I have to write a paper. I would like also to discuss with you important skills about writing and about, doing science in general. So I think this is something that we are going to discuss and take a look. And then we will do, I don't think we have time to do real writing, but my idea is to share with you some general aspect of how to tackle writing research papers. And I will also spend some time in, if you think it's relevant, on writing proposals, because this is also an important part in scientific writing. And proposal doesn't matter what you do in the scientific system. From the moment you finish your bachelor and you need to apply for a master, when you finish your master, if you want to further go for a PhD, or you want to go abroad, or once you are a tenure professor, and you will need to write proposals. So this is something that I think it's also important to take into account. And there are some aspects that are different between writing research papers and scientific. So we will pay some time on these two issues, and then a number of tips and tricks on how to write, how to improve writing. And of course, we are here because we are faced with this challenge, no? So we know the scientific system, and we have and we want to have our paper accepted, but there is this bumpy road where you get some. So I think the idea that you have, that some of you have, is how can we get less hits on our heads during this process, and and streamline this process. No? So I want to emphasize in this very initial introduction that scientific publishing and publishing paper is not only about writing. Actually, writing is one aspect, and if you ask me sincerely, I think writing itself is not the most important part. Of course, you need to be able to write and to make a text, but there are many other steps before that you have to consider, that you have to take care, that you have to strategically consider in order to publish a paper in a high ranked journal. So my point is that there is no magical recipe in which you can just by writing get into high. There are some other aspects that need to be considered. And with that, and because I don't know your background, I don't know your situation, I don't know exactly the audience, I don't think when I was coming to Indonesia and preparing this course and the other courses, one of the considerations I had is what type of audience I'm going to face. And it's difficult to give a talk about scientific writing without knowing what type of public, because I need to know your demands, your hopes, your situation to tailor a bit the message that I want to bring across. So that's why, as Ito pointed out, and we are 29 online, and we are here to so we are 41. We are not that many, still quite some. I would like to ask you if you can present yourselves and you tell me whether you are a student, at which level, whether you are faculty, at which level, and what is your background. And for those of you online, I propose that you send in the chat what you, so to avoid connecting, and is that all right? So I will start with you, and I'm going to take notes. So please, Ito, go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Eduardo. So basically, my experience with scientific writing publishing, we have published some papers. Mostly, I choose the publisher is Taylor Francis or Springer, and
Stage perhaps just what is your position now? Are you a student or not? And so you are in entomology, but so just to have an idea of what type of public I have and what is the situation, and then we will discuss some other points. No problem.
okay, I'm Ito Fernando, and I'm a young lecturer in entomology laboratory. And my research interest is mostly about mites and insect pests. Yeah. And that's all. Yes, I have a master's degree.
Hello, Prof. Eduardo. My name is Johanna Afilia. I'm same as Ito. I'm a young lecturer in here. And my research before is about antifungal protein from fungi. And I'm interested in biological control. Thank you.
And you have a master as well, Johanna.
Thank you, Prof. My name is Win. I'm from agronomy department, and I'm interested in plant science, actually in crop science. Thank you.
And Anna, what are you faculty? Yeah.
My name is Siska. I'm from agricultural faculty, from agronomy department, and I'm in climatology laboratory. My interest in microclimate. Now I'm a student in program doctoral.
Okay. Chip. Yes, Rina, I know you already. But
Okay, my name is Rina Rahmawati, and I'm from the Department of Plant Pests and Disease under the Laboratory of Biological Control. And now I'm doing my PhD studies in focusing in the diversity of arthropods and microbes in UB forests. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, Eduardo. Finally, we meet in physics. My name is Radityo. Actually, I'm not from this faculty because it's kind of just guessing, but I would like to be here. I'm the secretary of Department of Management from Faculty of Economic and Business, and I graduated also from Ghent University and still fellowship postdoctoral in Faculty of Economics in Ghent University. So nice to see you and looking forward for your guest lecture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Yogo Setiawan. I'm from Faculty of Agriculture, Department of Plant Pest and Disease, and part of Pest Laboratory. And my research about insect diversity, especially in bug and ambrosia beetles. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Shiva Veronica. I'm a fresh graduate from agricultural bachelor degree. And actually, I'm not studying anymore because I have not enrolled my master study yet. But I'd like to join this guest lecture because I love to write scientific writing. And my research interest is pests, especially stored product pests. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Rabiana Mawada. I'm from agriculture entomology. My research is diversity of natural enemy of refugee plant. My name is Evi Octavia. I'm a magister student of entomology. I'm interested in diversity of fruit flies in West Java. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mia Prastika Devi, and I'm master student of entomology, and I'm interested all about insect. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Hello, my name is Putri Dewi Sartika, and I am a student of entomological agriculture, and I'm interested about pests, especially about storage pest product.
Good afternoon, Prof. My name is Faiz, and I'm a master student of agriculture and entomology. And my research interest is about insect, especially ant and agroecology. Thank you.
the student division. Okay. And online, I don't know if they send messages or how can I check the chat? There are two people. I think nobody reacted. There are 30 participants. And from these 30 participants, do you know if whether faculty of students, just to have an idea?
Di fakultas, Pak Dita. Pesertanya bisa ditampilkan.
Okay, that's fine. So let's proceed, and I would like to to have now, I mean, with you and with people online, a short, well, I don't know if short, just to get from you some ideas, some expectations, and this doesn't have to be in order. I think you just raise your hand and then you explain a little bit what you want. No? So I would like to know from you, from the different, why do you think it's relevant to publish? Yeah? And so these questions, what do you think you need to publish in a good journal? Where do you publish, if you have done it so? And what problems do you face? I mean, you face is just writing, there are other things, it's time management, but perhaps let's focus first with some comments from you on why do you think is publishing relevant, and what do you want to publish actually?
Anybody want to share their opinion regarding this thing? And also to ladies and gentlemen and professor, doctors, and all colleagues who are joining us with us in Zoom. So some of them, professor, who the participant in the Zoom is, some of them are professors and doctors, as well as some young lecturers. You have met Ashif, Mr. Ashif, and also you have met Mr. Rifki. So maybe Mr. Ashif and Mr. Rifki, could you tell to Professor Eduardo once again about your research interest and background?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ito. Good afternoon, Professor, Prof. Eduardo, and good afternoon all. Let me guess. My name is Asif, Muhammad Asif, and my interest in forestry. My department in forestry, and my interest in ecological forestry, especially birds. And in this year, I study about diversity of avifauna diversity in UB forest, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see there are the heads of the Department of Soil Sciences who joining with us in the Zoom, Mr. Syahrul Kurniawan, and also the head of the Department of Agronomy, Dr. Nurami, as well as the Vice Dean of Student Affairs, Dr. Hagustano. You have met him last day. Any speech from Dr. Syahrul, Dr. Rahmi, or Dr. Hagustarno?
Well, it's fine. Perhaps we can go to
Sorry,
the next question.
Yeah. So hello, good afternoon, Professor Eduardo. My name is Syahrul Kurniawan. I'm from the head of Soil Science Department. So I think I would like to follow your guest lecture today. Just want to know like the tips for writing in scientific or publishing in the high reputable journal. So that's for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So perhaps what we could discuss, and I guess here you can help me better, and you can let me know or share with me and with the rest of the attendants What do you think you need to have to publish in a good journal? I mean, what's your idea about that? What do you need to have?
I give the
I mean,
opportunity. You are the privileged one here because you want to publish into.
yeah. I mean, because it's difficult, yeah, to publish in the good or in the high impact factor journal, yes, and that's why because you have a lot of experience, you can share your experience, yeah, to us in here, yeah, how to write a good article or manuscript that so it can be accepted and published in the high journal.
Understand. I mean, of course, I want to share perhaps my experience, and as I mentioned, some tips and tricks and some ideas to streamline this or to help to publish in a good paper. But my question is, regardless of what I can provide at this stage that we haven't have the workshop, and what do you think you need to have to publish in a high impact or a Q1, Q2 scientific journal? What do you think you need to have? Is interesting data? Is something else? If good writing is a combination of things, and if so, which do you think are important? So these are the things that that I would like to hear from you, because what I'm trying to go is, yeah, writing is not a magical skill that you can transfer like that. So you need to know what do you think is important, and according to that, I can emphasize certain aspects to compensate what perhaps you don't know or you are not aware of. So that's why I want to have this first discussion with you to get this information. So I can ask the question. I mean, is this a matter of writing? Is data? Is a research questions that are important? What do you think? I mean,
maybe you can tell Professor Eduardo what is your main problems in writing scientific article? Is it about the data analysis, the linguistic, or something else? Ms. Rina, maybe you can initiate the discussion.
Actually, I just want to confirm first, your question is that the part that is being a concern or issue for us in writing a scientific,
yes, it could be several things. Perhaps it's time you don't have the time to. It could.
You already know the answer from my side.
No. It's time. It's a language yeah. So that's what I want to know. What's for you, and it's also important. Of course, I want to hear the your opinion, Rina, but perhaps other people have other limiting factors. So I would like to have a bit of a taste of what's there.
Of course, to start the discussions from my personal point of view, actually we have two barriers, internal barriers and external barriers. For internal barriers, we have to admit somehow, at least in my personal experience, it was our internal driven that is being a concern or big significant. If we do have internal driven or internal motivation, that will help everything basically. But since our motivation is up and down to write a paper, that will make everything difficult. And I think what I'm saying is that it's just in the matter of our motivations to write a good paper. If we already finished with our motivation, then we can we can start our writings right away. For the issue like language barriers or probably data interpretations or probably research questions, it will follow after we are finished with our motivation. That's my personal point of view. And for the external barriers, usually, well, at least this is my personal observations. In several cases, we face with difficulties in gaining good references or novel references. And in several other cases, we usually come up with difficulties in arranging what is the most interesting topics and most relevant topics in this particular journal. Is it this angle of story or different another way around? And in Indonesia also, it's not that easy to find a Q1 journal that is cost friendly. Yeah, I was to say.
Yes.
That is for external barriers. But what I believe the most significant thing is in our
Thank you, Rina.
Agree with Mrs. Rina, and also maybe to Mrs. Vivin and Mrs. Siska.
Maybe for my case, almost the same with Burina. For the big problem, maybe it's motivation to start to writing, and to when are you writing, a point of view apa ya, question of intinya yang interest, point of interest for my paper, for to more to show that this is made, so just language is too from difficult for me.
But when you say, and also Rina was referring to internal motivation, what do you mean with, I mean, you have done a project, I guess, you have gathered results, you have everything ready, and then you have problems to put that into a paper because of, for you it's over, or what is this motivation that, because what I would tend to think is you have the results, you may have nice results of a project, and then you want to share with the community those results.
Maybe sometime for my research, when we get the result, sometimes not significant or not interest for my opinion, or more from
So you think that the results are not relevant enough
yes,
to be published,
yes,
and then okay,
yes, not maybe not for most interest for to publication.
Okay, but
sometimes like that.
Probably you have some results that are interesting. It's
Yes.
true that in science, I think not only you, everybody, you do experiments, you do observations, and some of them don't work out as you expect, or experiment may fail, or
Yes,
often
yes.
failed.
Yes, yes.
But sometimes they work. So in this situation where you have something that is interesting and that it's okay, is there something that refrain from publishing, or then it's easier?
Some for nice research or interest for research, we publish this research.
Okay, so if the results are good, and
Yes.
then you manage to publish this.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That clarifies a lot of things.
To note that when we got a project or we got a fund for to do research, the main output is a scientific article. Usually something like that. We must publish our research.
Okay.
And also I will give opportunities to doctors and professors who join with us in the Zoom to share their opinion regarding the difficulties we are facing in scientific writing. Any opinion? Okay, so maybe to Miss Johanna, or maybe to students,
yeah,
because they are. It is compulsory for them to publish a scientific article.
From your bachelor dissertation, or from the master? Okay. And what do you experience, or what is for you the difficult part at this stage?
Currently is in the peer review process. So maybe you both of you could tell us about your difficulties in the peer review process.
For the opportunity. In this time, my experience about scientific writing is I face some difficult when the result is not significant, just little bit similar with Miss. And when the reviewer give us the review, some comment some comment to the result is
research when the reviewer asks to do something else, something like that.
Okay. From the people here, I mean, how many of you have already published papers in peer-reviewed journals? Just raise your hand. So
For someone who has already published a paper in Scopus Index Journal, maybe you can raise your hands. So actually, Yogo has already published several papers in Scopus Index Journal. So maybe Yogo, you could tell us about your difficulties in writing scientific paper.
Thank you, Mr. Ito. My difficulties about how to analyze the raw data from student, because in the international journal, we should had good data or good analysis to show in the manuscript, and so we had the raw data a little bit not good. So yes.
And what is for you just good data and good analysis? Just is quantity, quality, both?
Okay, maybe tampilan. Maybe because I usually use R program for the analysis, and it's so difficult to analyze with this program because this program is usually used for good picture or good apa?
Graphs for the
Yes.
graphs.
Yes.
And which program are you using for statistical analysis?
Stats and SPSS.
Stats and SPSS.
Yeah, R statistic.
R stat. So no R. R.
Yes, R.
Okay.
And SPSS.
Okay, understood. Okay.
Or Aminuddin Afandi. He is one of the professor in our department. So Professor Aminuddin, maybe you could tell Professor Eduardo about your background and research interests.
I study for relationship insect and entomopathogenic fungi, yeah, especially Pipiria bassiana. Thank you for Masito.
To Professor Amin. Professor Eduardo, any follow-up regarding the data problem?
No, just explain to Professor that I mean, before discussing or getting into details on scientific writing itself, I needed to know a little bit the audience and what's the situation regarding their background, their interest, and what type of limiting factors you experience that prevents or refrains from publishing in a high impact journal. So I'm asking, so I don't know if you can share this experience. You are a professor, a senior professor. So what is, according to you, the main limiting factors regarding publishing in Q1 or Q2 journals at faculty level? Perhaps you can share your opinion or your vision with us.
Professor Afandi mostly work with entomopathic fungi to control insect pests, and he actually already experienced in scientific writing article. He has published several papers in high impact journals and mostly in Springer's. Yes.
And the papers that are being published, are you the first author, or you are a middle author, or how is this organized? I would like to know this as well.
For master and PhD student, they will become the first author, but sometimes the supervisor will be the corresponding authors.
Okay,
and
yeah.
for research project or something that each professor or each faculty get fund from the university, they will become the first author and the corresponding authors. And mostly for bachelor students, several research from several students will be combined into one, and then the supervisor will be the one who write all of them and become the corresponding author.
Okay. Sorry that I'm asking so many questions, but I think it's very important to know what's the situation here at the faculty.
Yes, it is indeed important.
So you talk about the programs that you are using for statistics. So some of you use R, some of you use SPSS, and I know it doesn't have directly anything to do with scientific writing, but what is the statistical background of faculty and students? Do you have statistics? I presume you have a course on statistics. All of you, is it mandatory? Is not mandatory? Do you know or do you learn to use programs there. So what's the situation? Perhaps the students can answer first because they're newer to.
Okay, students, you can answer the Professor Eduardo question regarding the statistic course you learn in bachelor and postgraduate programs. Any of you to maybe Putri? What is the difference about the statistics course in undergrad, in bachelor, and also in your master program?
Thank you, Mr. Ito. Actually, in the bachelor, I using air statistic, and in master, I'm using also air statistics. So I know about SPSS and air statistic and SAS.
SAS, okay.
But I'm not know well about SAS about that. Thank you.
So you are trained on these three programs or mainly using R?
I using R statistics.
Okay.
In the Department of Plant Pests and Disease in the postgraduate programs in phytopathology and entomology, the R statistics is the software we use to teach the students.
SPSS.
R,
okay.
And for the bachelor degree, I think they only learn about the introductory kind of statistical analysis, but they also there is a practice course when they learn how to operate the software.
Okay, a couple of more questions. I'm torturing you with, I'm forcing you to speak, but it's very important that we exchange some ideas. So perhaps you can also help me to find out how you work here. So when you start a project as a master student or later on you are involved in some research, when you start to define the research objectives or the research question, are you thinking in publishing from the beginning, of you start and then you have the results and then you see how you can publish? I mean, how do you integrate publication in the whole process?
Ladies and gentlemen, anyone to share their opinion? And maybe from participant in Zoom. Mr. Ashif or Mr. Rifki, you have any opinion? Also Mr. Rafiq or Mrs. Sylvie?
Perhaps you can also, related to this question that I just posed, how are research topics defined for students? I mean, when a student starts with a master thesis, I guess, are these topics, how are these proposed? How is the process? I mean, is the head of the department who propose a number of topics? Is bottom up? Are the students proposing a topic? How are they? I just need to understand what is the flow at this university, because you know, in each department of in each university, sometimes the way of working is different.
And doctors, maybe you could tell us how master students or PhD students get their research topic. Or maybe students, maybe you could tell us how you define your research interest and how you choose and how like that. Is it your own idea or is it from your supervisor?
Okay, thank you. When I design a research proposal, the only thing that in my head is, can I publish it? Because this is our duty in master program. Then for us, it's very difficult for me to find some idea. Then I try to find some old research in the other place or country. Then I do it in here. Maybe like that.
So for you, from the very beginning, it's important to know that you can eventually publish this, and this is a factor that you take into account to choose a topic. So you ask, can I publish this? Or you ask to your supervisor, will we be able to publish this? I mean, this is something that you ask. And how what's the answer that you get? We will publish this afterwards, or there is a discussion about the strategy to publish with your supervisor. Is this discussed or not?
When I make a proposal, I discuss with my supervisor, and maybe in ecology, the result from other place is different from some other place. And we think that's a new thing, then we can publish in scientific journal.
Okay. One very last question. Rina was mentioning that one of the problems that she was facing is accessing or knowing which references are important and which not. And so my question to you is, what type of access do you have to scientific journals? I mean, do you have via the university access to journals, and to which, or is just Googling and using, I don't know, Sci-Hub or whatever it's there? Yeah. And yeah, so that's, please, you could elaborate on this.
Mostly for students from the bachelor degree, we tell them about some publisher such as Science Directs, Springer, and also Wiley, and so on. They could search the reference from there, but mostly most scientific articles are not free, so we must purchase it. And Brawijaya has an access to Science Directs, I believe, and also GStore.
But the university doesn't provide access via subscriptions to the journals. So you can find the articles, but you don't have access to the PDFs, to the paper, to the full paper.
I think Universitas Brawijaya has a subscription to several journals published in mostly Science Directs, Elsevier.
Okay.
Okay. And for about Sci-Hub, I think not many researchers or faculties in our university knows about it.
Okay. And related to the importance of reference, Rina was saying, and then you, I forgot, sorry, your name. You mentioned that you agreed with Rina. When you mentioned that it's difficult for you to identify what are relevant papers or reference, what do you mean? What is difficult? Is because of the topic? Is because you are working in Indonesia and then you think, is this relevant in Indonesia or no? I mean, beyond Indonesia, what are the doubts that you have?
Any follow-up from Ms. Vivian, Mrs. Siska, or Mr. Yogo?
maybe we difficult to find new topic. Yes.
But why? Because in Indonesia has occurred so many research, or
Actually, our research is about conventional research. We have no good tools or other.
you mean biological molecular methods? So you don't have these facilities, and then the question is, what can I do with the means I have? So this is a very important issue. So some of you, the problem that you have is logistics, let's say. So you are working on biotechnology or molecular techniques, but you don't have access to the facilities to do this type of research. So do you have, just to know, do you have a PCR, access to PCR machine?
To do the sequencing, we must send it to the company or to the another laboratory.
And you don't have funds to pay for the sequencing? Or do you have financial means to, I mean, the faculty?
Sometimes, but mostly not.
It's project related. So if you have a project where you can pay for it, then you could do it. If not, okay. Okay. Okay, so thanks a lot. And again, I didn't want to torture you with many questions, but I think it's important to, but I get now a better picture.
Mr. Ashif, he raised his hand.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ito. I have some question. In my experience, for writing good papers in this year, I have one or two draft, and this is my difficult. And besides motivation, you must need a good motivation for the start. But sometimes we sometimes not just motivation, but the partner, and we can go to partner for discussion in same field, like some field like for example in my field there is avifaunal diversity, and partner for discussion is so busy or something else. And number second, maybe this is lack of literation, because many papers have to pay, and the books is so expensive, and if we access to library, we have not that book. What that mean? I want to read for my topic I study. And number third, maybe sense for novelty, and I think the impact of the papers is maybe just in this time, not for a long time, and maybe three of that my difficult. I'm sorry in my English so poor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asif. So, well, from this initial discussion, I think I have an idea of the situation of the audience. If I get it right, I have the impression also that for you, because there is this pressure from coming from above that you need to publish. So from the beginning, you have this pressure actually to publish. I mean, this is, I think, very normal in the scientific, in academia. So in all countries, in all areas, in one way or another, we have this. But there are also some, I think, important factors, refraining or restraining from you to publish. So I propose to focus now. This afternoon we have 1 hour more, I think, Ito, or how much do we have?
It is about 40 minutes.
40 minutes, okay. So I'm going to give an introductory lecture on what is scientific method and scientific publishing. And tomorrow, based on the input I had from you, we'll have a tailored to discuss something more practical, and then to give you some clear examples of how to proceed to try to tackle some of the barriers that you are experiencing for publishing. Okay? So I think faculty, young faculty, probably this is something they have heard, they have seen, but for you, bachelor or master students, I think this is something that I think is still relevant. So I want to give you some very basic ideas and definitions about what is scientific research, what is the scientific method, how is the scientific system organized, and type of research that we can do. Because from the very beginning, I think you have to understand, you are not, I am not sharing the, sorry, you are not seeing. Share screen. So now you see it. Sorry about that. I wasn't sure that. So we will have in the remaining 40 minutes or half an hour, just a very general introduction to some general aspects about scientific research that are important for you to know. So one question we can pose ourselves is, what is research? And of course, we can Google it and get different definitions from different sources. What is in a name doesn't matter, but I think it's important to have in mind what is research. So research and experimental development is a formal work undertaken systematically. So systematically means in a systematic way, with a structure, to increase our knowledge, the stock of knowledge of a certain topic, and use this generated knowledge to devise new application or understand certain areas. So this is research, and this is a definition. Of course, I don't expect you, and I'm actually not examining you, so you don't need to memorize this, but I want to focus on a couple of aspects of this definition. And if you look at the definition, there are a couple of keywords, and it's not they highlighted in black. If you look at this definition, you will see that this experimental development, so experimental work is part of it. that it's undertaken systematically, so in a structured way. This is also important, and to increase, to know, to get more knowledge. So I think I want to keep this in mind. Then the question you can pose yourself is, well, research, you gave a definition. What is then scientific research? So I throw the ball to the students. So what is for you scientific research? Compared to research, you can do research. What is scientific research? What is for you scientific?
Yes. For me, scientific research is some work that can be measured statistically, something.
Okay, so what you want to say is that you can express numerically, and then you can do some data analysis to extract certain patterns of information from this generated numerical data. Is that? Well, there is something of it but basically scientific research is that type of research, that type of process where you do experimentation, you try to build up knowledge, but where you apply a scientific method. And this takes me to the next question. What is the scientific method? I don't know if you have had philosophy of science, whether you have been explained what is the scientific method. Yes, no, this is something common, or so you have here, you see on the screen. I don't know if I have to stay or whatever you prefer. I think that I see that I'm out of camera, so I have to be like a newsreader from television. But you can see on the screen what is the scientific method. And this is actually quite intuitive. So, and this is also very much related with the structure that you will later on, when writing a paper, going to use to build up a paper. And you will see. So let's already advance something. When you think of a scientific paper, you have usually the structure is an introduction. You will have in a paper, in a common, you will have an introduction. Then you will have the material and methods. Then you have the results, and then you have some conclusion. I mean, a discussion, and as you may have certain conclusions. So you have introduction, material and methods, results, and discussion. So this resembles actually what we do when we apply the scientific method. And this is what we have in mind when we do scientific research. We will identify a problem, propose a question, we will gather information. So you may want to know, I always give, because your background is in agricultural science, in crop protection, in this type of things. You may want to know, I will give you an example. You may want to know what factors are behind low yields in rice fields in a certain area of East Java. I don't know, that's something. So you need to identify the problem. That's what you want to do. So the first thing that you do is to gather information about that particular problem, about that particular issue. So perhaps there has been previous research, perhaps there's been, I don't know, reports from the state on this issue. So you will gather the information that is available about that. And then you will formulate a hypothesis, or you will present a case. And you may think, okay, perhaps certain insect or a disease or a combination of diseases is behind the low yield losses. I mean, the low yield that I see in certain areas, or perhaps has to do with poor management practices. I don't know. You will formulate a question, a hypothesis, and the next step, you will design an experiment. Sometimes you do observational studies, or you do a combination of that. So you collect what this gentleman was saying. So you will collect the data, obtain numerical data that you will record and organize. You will analyze those data, and then based on this, you will draw conclusions. And based on these results, you, in an iterative way, you go back to your initial. So this is what you are doing when applying the scientific method. In a nutshell, this is what we do. I mean, this is very textbook case, but you see there is a systematical flow of steps. So we can also further, so keep in mind this general flow, and now we can discuss some important aspects that you need to take into account when doing scientific research, and that you will need to take into account when publishing or trying to publish a scientific paper. So usually scientific research, and this is very theoretical, but let's get the important messages out of it. Scientific research is a process of rigorous reasoning based on interactions among theories, methods, and findings. So what does that mean? What do I want to see? A rigorous reasoning. So you have to, by applying the scientific method, know what is the knowledge available, know in some cases what is the theory or the hypothesis behind. When you do a very applied research, like the question I was, the example that I was using in my previous slide, it's very clear. If you want to know what is an agronomical problem, it's theory is not that important. But when you are dealing with other topics in ecology, in economics, sometimes in social sciences, to know the theory behind is very, very important. To know which hypotheses are explaining certain facts, you have to know this theory. So you have to know the framework in which you are working to be able to set your research. You have to frame your research in a theory, a body of knowledge, of previous knowledge. So this is the very first step. And I think when we're having the discussion, you were saying something important. I think you do it. You want to see what's done before, what are relevant references in your topic. Because you don't want to do something that is already done. So that's what in this slide is also referring to. So you usually build on previous knowledge. You don't want to repeat something that has been done. Nonetheless, this is a parenthesis, it's also necessary. And the scientific community is now very aware that it's very important to repeat certain experiments, to repeat. So before there was this kind of obsession that you have always to produce something new. In some cases, especially for hypothesis contesting research, you may want to repeat science, you may want to repeat experiments, but in general, the flow of science is you try to do something novel. And you want to know, you want to build on something that has been done, or can be also the case, you may want to challenge, you may want to disagree or to prove that somebody else may be not correct or had done a wrong interpretation of a certain problem. So, but still you need to know what's been done. What are the hypotheses, the previous hypotheses defined and studied. So this is something that you do. So going back to the initial process, when thinking of a topic, when thinking of writing a proposal, you are going to do that. You are going to gather the information and try to define from the beginning, where is my gap in the market? Where is my niche? What can I do that is new? Something important, and this is also related to writing. You may be thinking, but this is not about writing. These type of questions are related later on to writing. So I write here what are the fundamental principles of the scientific method. So you have to ask yourself significant questions, something that is relevant, that is important, and that can be answered empirically, that can be answered in a way that is sustained. So that means that the formulation of a problem is often more essential than its solution. So the bottom line, the message here from this slide, and this also for writing a paper, is it's very important how you formulate a problem. So you may be thinking, but you know, I was for some years lecturing students in an international program in crop protection, and there were students mainly coming from Southeast Asia and Latin America. So students from Thailand, from Vietnam, from different places, and also Guatemala, Central and South America. And in many cases, they were working on plant nematology, and yeah, they wanted to address problems of nematodes in their countries of origin. And some of them say, well, but this is not so relevant, or this is not important, or this is, and it's true that sometimes you may think, but it's not interesting to know what are the causing problems of low rice yields in, I don't know, what's a village 20 kilometers from here. Just give a name of it doesn't matter. Malang, okay, so what's behind the low productivity of a crop in Malang? And you may think, well, is this relevant or not? But perhaps the way you frame this question, is this related to food security of the region? Is perhaps related to rural development in that area? So then at the beginning, it was a trivial, not interesting question that you may think, this is not so important. The way you frame it can be very important. So this is an important message that needs to be. And this takes me again to how you frame things. The second point, you have to link research to a relevant theory. So most of perhaps fundamental research is slightly different. I mean, applied research is slightly different. But if you do fundamental research, you have to link this to what are the general theories of that discipline. If you are working in biotechnology, you have to relate your research to what are the main biotechnological advantages. If you are working in ecology, is this about understanding competition, mutualistic interactions? It's about understanding, I don't know, succession, ecological succession. It's about restoration. So even though if you focus on a little piece of research on something, you have to try to get the bigger picture, try to frame this. And this is not inflating something. Inflating, I mean, you have something that is, and you will pump it until it gets very, but it's, no, I mean, I'm not saying to inflate something without meaning, but almost all the things that we do can be framed in a way that is relevant for a wider audience. That so, and you have to link this to relevant theory. That's the point. So when you write a paper, you start with your introduction. You have to link. Why is this important? What is the general framework that is important to study a certain group of pathogens in the Brauillaya forest? I mean, it's about production systems. It's about increasing production of certain of coffee in this forest. It's about conserving diversity in an endangered location. So you can always put, even if you work, I remember there were some people were coming from biology that are working with birds. Perhaps you are working with a single species of birds that, okay, it's interesting for you, but perhaps the world doesn't, it's not so concerned about that bird, but it's about preserving biodiversity in an area where there's a lot of population. So there is a general frame to that is important for people outside Brauillaya forest. So those are the things that you have to think when you do research, when you write a paper. How the research I'm doing in this particular tiny fragment and in this area, how is this important in a wider context? That's something that you have to start thinking from the beginning. And we were thinking, or we were talking about, you remember, if we go to this slide, the scientific method, and I told you, okay, this is also related to the general structure of an article, the introduction, material and methods, results, the discussion. So when you have identified a problem, you have a research question, you have something you want to do, you have to think from the very beginning, so before starting the research, what type of methods are you going to apply to answer that question? What type of methodology? How you are going to do it? Are you going to do an observational study? Are you going to do an observational study and an experiment? What type of experiment you are going to do? What is the design? So this is very important that you start to think about these things from the very beginning. Something that the students often do, and this is because they get a poor supervision or because whatever, is they have a research question, they start to gather data without really thinking in a structured way, and then you come up with a soup, like a soup of data coming from different, and then you find that it's very difficult to give shape to this data, or these data are meaningless. And you say, well, I don't have difference. It could be because your results or because were indeed not so good, but perhaps it's because you didn't apply the right methods and the right design to your question. So this is something that from the beginning you have to think, you have to consider. Before going to the field, you have to think, what can I do? And give a lot of thought to that. And you have to understand whether the method that you are applying is suitable to answer the question you are asking. And this may look trivial or evident, but it's not. And this also takes me to some of the comments that you made. You mentioned that some of you that are in biotechnology, sometimes they lack resources or infrastructure. So I mean machinery and to do biotechnology and to do high-tech research. If that's the case, there is little, I mean, I don't want to discourage you, but there is little that you can do to improve that situation until you get the, but what you can do is pose other questions to answer with the materials that you have. An interesting question. I remember when I was doing my PhD, my promoter told me one sentence, and I cannot complain. I was in a lab where we had resources, where we had materials, but actually he gave me a lesson that I still remember. And he told me, Eduardo, you have to think about experimental design and about article to propose questions, to propose topics that even if you only have a ruler, you know, a ruler to measure distance and a balance to weight, that you could do something significant. So my point and the bottom line is you can do interesting research interesting research in high rank impact factors with no material whatsoever, without PCR machines, without sequencing, without nothing. But you have to, from the very beginning, to think, is this a relevant question? Can I do an interesting observational study and experiment with low resources? Yes or no? And think about that. So, and you have, and this is something that you have to face, but it's not impossible. You have to be clever to compensate the fact that you don't have perhaps the resources that a lab in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, or a lab in, I don't know, in Colorado State University in the States would have. But that doesn't mean that you cannot do research because you don't have this. If you have the right question, you can do it. And you also have something that other places don't have. You open the window and you look around, you travel around, you have natural systems, you have agricultural systems that can be explored, that there are novel things that can be there. So there is a lot of interesting information that can be useful for Indonesia, for other parts of Southeast Asia, for other, and understand this system. But what is important is from the beginning, identify interesting problems, interesting questions, and use the right methodology. And think about this from the very beginning. So going to the fundamental principles, that is also, they are also important for writing a paper. So this, I mean, the type of research that you do has to be reliable. We have to be sure that, I mean, we, when I say we, is the scientific community that is going to evaluate your paper, that is going to evaluate your work. We have to know that there is trustworthy, of course, because of you did this in the right way, but because there is a link, a direct link between your question, the methodology, and later on with the results. And this takes me to the material and methods of a paper. You will have to provide in your material and methods a detailed account of what you have done, how you have done, which materials, in a way that I can also do the experiment based on what I read. You have to explain me how many replicates you use in your experiment. You have to, so you have to explain these things so the community can replicate this. The community knows what you did and how you did it. And the community, the scientific community, the peer reviewers, the reviewers of the journal, can check if the methodology that you applied is well linked to your question, and whether your question can be answered with what you did. So you have to have, and that's why you, from the beginning, you have to have this flow, this mental flow. And you have this, to have this mental flow that is the scientific method. When you start with a research topic, when you are developing, and at the end, and when you start writing. So in this material and methods I mentioned, and you know, you have to explain what you did, how you did it. You may also explain things that perhaps were not done, or certain assumptions that you took to do that experiment or to do an observational study. And often, if you explain what were the assumptions, what decisions you take to do or not to do, and if you explain those, this is a way also of being clear about what you do. I've worked a lot with bachelor students, with master students. There is sometimes the tendency to hide things, to hide. I didn't do this, or and you don't mention it, because I think students often have the idea that everything has to be perfect. And actually there is no perfect experiment. There is no thing that is completely complete up to the final detail. But if you are explaining in your material and methods why you didn't do certain things, or what type of assumptions or you took, this is a way of explaining what you did, and the scientific community can say, okay, this assumption was made, okay, this is a valid assumption that was taken. So you have to be clear also about these things. Not try to hide, not try to of course, this doesn't mean that if you fail to include in your experiment an important control, let's say you do an experiment and you need, sometimes you need a positive control, a negative control, and then your experimental tests. If you fail to include relevant control, there is not much you can do. But sometimes you have the control, you have the treatment, you have everything, but you decided not to include or not to do one experiment. You can explain that. So be open. That's my message. Be open and fair about what you did and what you didn't. And if you didn't something because a reason, you can explain why you did it. You did not do it. So you have to be fair and open. If you are fair and open, you have more chances to come across by a reviewer than if you hide things. Because the reviewer, I mean, usually who gets papers to review? Researchers that have a lot of experience. They will see through you trying to hide certain things. So it's better to be open and fair. And then this is a bit more philosophical topic or issue, but is related to the scientific method and is related to when writing a paper, but to the philosophy of publishing. So from the discussion this afternoon, in a way, I have one impression is that you have a lot of pressure to publish because this is what is expected from you to promote, to get a position, and that's fair. We all have that. I mean, you have this old saying, publish or perish in academia, although we are moving away from this. But I think your main purpose when writing a paper even though it's to get a position, is to get promoted or whatever, is to share this knowledge with the scientific community. You want to share your knowledge with the scientific community. You may want to challenge, you want to change certain area of knowledge where you weren't agreeing with what the community, with the scientific community was saying, or the interpretation of a certain author. So you want to, I think the driver to write and to publish is to share the knowledge with the and again, as I said, for the material and methods, the extent to which new findings can be reviewed, contested, accepted, rejected in the scientific writing or in the scientific publication process has to do with how good, how well are your data, your methods, and your reasoning behind. So what these 3 points mean, what this slide is trying to say, and also this general flow. So publishing and writing a good paper is not only about writing. It's not about open the computer and then you have a white screen and then you have to write in English, which is a language that is not your native language. It's not my native language. And I know it's a challenge, how to word, how to, from your language, go to this. And that's difficult, but the important thing, and you can do this in your own language, is everything before this writing, the white page in English. Do I have an interesting question? What do I know? What is the background? How can I frame this in a broader picture? What is, am I using the right methodology? Is my observational study correct? Do I need to complement this with an experiment? Yes or no? If I do an experiment, what do I do? A full factorial design, or I do something else? So these steps, you can think of those in your own language, in your own words, and find out. So you have to think this. And of course, at the end, you will have to translate, to think, but you can already have a much better first draft if you have think from the very beginning on these questions. So just going back, the research process, and this is what you are doing. So you select and define a problem. You accumulate the information to set the picture, to set the frame, what is available. You also look at what is the theory, the hypothesis that the community has posed around that topic. And then you will frame your specific question for your study, and you will formulate hypotheses. Then you will have to decide what type of activity you are going to do. I always say the same. You are going to do an observational study, or you are going to do an experiment, usually, and I will go to this perhaps tomorrow. Usually, experimental approaches have, in principle, more potential for application. I mean, for publication, than pure observational studies. But this depends a lot of what type of topic and what type of research. And often, the beginning of any research is observational. You will go out there and see what's the problem and report the problem. So observational studies can be very interesting. But usually for high impact journals, you usually combine observational with experimental data. So you will design, collect the data, and then you will have to analyze it, and then based on the results of the analysis, you discuss, and then you go back to the body of knowledge and relate to that. And doing this, you prepare a report. In many cases, that this is what you are doing, isn't it? And in some other cases, it's not a report, it's actually a publication that you have to produce. But if you don't think about all these steps, about its flow, and you only think about this when you have to write the publication, then you face a lot of problems. And I think it's in this case what you have. You don't consider many things until the very moment you open the computer, and then you say, oh, I have to write my report, or I have to write my paper. Oh God, what I'm going to do. And there are also some general things that perhaps these are very basic. These are very much related to philosophy of science. One question, and this is, so we have seen this general flow. One question that I can ask you is, how do we know what we know? So what we know it from personal experience. We reflect, we observe. In some cases, can be from tradition in science. So there is a school of thought, and there are symptoms. But this is tradition, and previous knowledge cannot be taken for granted. So I think it's the duty also to always challenge, be critical and challenge previous knowledge and previous tradition. There is also something that authority, so you have expert opinions. Again, it's important to take into account the opinion of experts, but you can always challenge, and it's our duty to challenge authority. So my advice, also a message, is challenge authority, challenge what is, sometimes it's better to go against the flow, than just go with the flow. So research, and going back to the original description, the original definition, is a systematic process. So keep in mind this flow that I show you. And I think, Ito, I'm 1 hour. I don't know if I have more time, or you want to ask things. How is the regarding time?
Okay. Apparently the time is past the time, but it's okay, Professor. Maybe there are some questions or opinions you would like to ask to Professor, and maybe for the scientific theory and scientific laws, maybe we can continue it for tomorrow.
So tomorrow I will. So we are not going to have a discussion. I got the information I needed from the previous hour. So I'm going to give you, I think, 45 minutes, 1 hour. I have 2 hours tomorrow, right, Rina? Of some theory about some, I think, important concepts are related to philosophy of science, but I think it's very important that you have them. And then we will have a hands-on with tips and tricks, how you have to tackle an abstract, how do you have to tackle the introduction, how do you have to tackle the different parts, and so you have some applied tips for writing. So that's fine, but I don't know if you have questions. I'm here, all yours.
Any questions? Not yet. And Professor, how about is it possible if tomorrow we will review together a manuscript and to point the shortcomings of the manuscript? Because Miss Rina has deliberately proposed her manuscript to be reviewed together. Okay.
I can, what I can do is I can come up perhaps not with Rina's paper. I think this is quite well. We can take, or I can take from a previous student of mine, but without name,
Okay.
anonymous.
Yes.
And then we see, or I have also reviewed some papers, and I won't show, and I can show you which problems I identify. So we can do that. So I will take into account this for my lesson tomorrow. Okay.
So last opportunities. Any question to Professor Eduardo? If there is no any question, let's call it a day, Professor Eduardo. And thank you, Professor, for your kindness and willingness to share your experience and lecture about scientific writing and scientific research. And also thanks to all professors, doctors, colleagues, as well as to all students who eagerly participate in today's scientific workshop. And I totally agree with Professor Eduardo that we must not writing a paper due to the pressure from the university. It will become a burden, and we must write the paper passionately, not reluctantly. Okay, that's all for today, and maybe we can have a photo session.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's come forward. And to participants who join us with Zoom, you can turn on your camera. We leave the Zoom. Thank you, Dr. Rahmi, Dr. Rafiq, and Dr. Bayu, and also all doctors and all colleagues. And also thank you, Mr. Bayu Mario, for joining with us.